On January 27, 2020, the United Nations Human Rights Council's Universal Periodic Review Working Group examined Uganda's human rights record. This process spotlighted the human rights situation in Uganda and recommendations government should take to fulfill its human rights obligations.
So we are here to assess those recommendations and see how best we can implement them. The UPR is normally state-driven. It's driven by countries, but they are encouraged to work with civil society organizations and other stakeholders like the Human Rights Commission.
It is important to remember that the Commission has just 12 regional offices. We cannot reach every corner of Uganda, but civil society organizations are everywhere in the country. They help us access important information which we may otherwise not be able to access.
Now the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders in Uganda have started to assess how far Uganda has gone in implementing the over 200 economic and social rights recommendations offered to the government.
So some of the many recommendations had to do with civil liberties, the investigations of the November incidences. When we talk about the November incidences, we are talking about the killings and arrests and torture that occurred prior to the elections. And government of Uganda unfortunately said they were not taking them. One of the countries that recommended that was the Republic of Ukraine, that investigations into enforced disappearances should be undertaken. Other recommendations have to do with laws to protect albinos, the albino people, and also laws to protect maternal health.
But what happens when a member state takes note or declines to implement a given recommendation?
When you show consistent non-cooperation within the UPR mechanism, chances are likely that the Human Rights Council will put you on their agenda to be a subject of debate. And I don't think any country would want to be debated in as far as their human rights situation is concerned.
The coalition is also concerned that more needs to be put in place, even as some measures are put in place to protect human rights.
If you look at our recommendations, we have asked government to have closure on the aspect of enforced disappearances, that we shouldn't go into 2026 when people are still claiming they are missing their family members. But normally, if you ask me, what are the human rights challenges right now facing? Are socio-economic rights, the social well-being. How many people can afford medical services? How many people are going to be able to send their children to school at the end of this week?
Human rights and freedoms cannot be realized in a day. Even the international human rights conventions talk about progressive but not instant realization. It's just like crimes. Actually, there is a thin line between a crime and a human rights violation. Crimes are committed every day. They will always be committed. What matters is how we respond as a Human Rights Commission and as a state.
Many times, security forces have been asked to explain why they top the list of human rights violators. In response, the force says a special human rights protection course is now part of their training.
Yes. And that is to really demonstrate how much importance that we attach to issues of human rights. It is part and parcel of a training.
Even with this, government is yet to develop a clear position on their said recommendations and how they plan to implement them, in the given how frequent they are around election time. John Cliff Wamala, NTV News.